What's going on, everybody? We're back for another video, and we actually have a video for the Ram here. I know this hasn't been on the channel in quite some time. It's just my daily driver, so I don't really mod it too much as of now, but if you haven't seen the video, we'll link it up here. I think December 29th, 2019, we actually installed the leveling kit, the 2.5-inch leveling kit by Motofab, and it completely changed the entire appearance of the truck. It looks way more aggressive, and the stance is awesome. We also installed the bigger tires, the 33s with the Moto metal wheels, so literally transformed the entire truck. I love it. But we kind of cheaped out. We bought just the leveling kit and nothing else, no suspension and anything. So it's been, 30,000 miles or so on this stock suspension with the truck leveled in the front, lifted up. So it doesn't really like that, and the ride quality has degraded quite a bit. This is going to eliminate that spacer, the Eibach. They sell a kit for this truck that essentially it's the, everything, shocks, springs, struts, all that, but it eliminates that spacer and still going to give it that leveled appearance, which I do like. I didn't want to go back to the factory rake. So yeah, we're going to be installing this today. And if you want to, we're not really going to do like a step-by-step because we already did that in the video before when we installed the leveling kit. So if you're interested in that, like I said, just check out that video. This is going to be more of showcasing the Eibach and then doing, like an after, how the ride quality differs from the stock suspension. I think it's going to be completely different. It's going to ride much smoother. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. All right, so let's unbox this thing, see what we're working with. Box in a box. There we go. Yeah, I got long arms here. So I actually have Eibach suspension on my Mustang too. Just some lowering springs in the shocks and struts as well, and it's really a great company, great product. I really like it, so I figured might as well stick with it. So got it for the truck here. Alright guys, so we went ahead and took everything out of the box. Everything checks out good. Gave you a bunch of stickers and like a little scan code to get to their website if you have any questions. So we might use that if we need it, but probably not. This is basically going to lift the front 2.75 inches, and then the springs and everything in the rear is going to lift it an extra inch. So hoping it's going to keep that level appearance to it, but we'll see. Definitely good quality just by looking and feeling the springs and everything. Also, they give you extra little rings here if you do towing or anything like that, or just didn't want the lifted look, I guess. You could opt to install this on whatever ring set you want. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different options, which is pretty cool. But yeah, without further ado, let's just start taking the front off.
So as you can see, we got the truck lifted up on the jack stands. We also have the jack just for extra support on the subframe, and these are on the frame itself. He did mention that we're not going to be really doing a tutorial because we do have pretty much a step-by-step tutorial when we did the leveling kit. He linked that video in the beginning, so if you want that, click on that. But if not, it's going to be more of like a skimming kind of thing. So pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to remove the caliper, and the bracket all is one. It's 21 millimeters. We're going to remove it from the upper control arm. We're going to move the sway bar link, tie rods, and then we'll remove the whole assembly right here. There's a bolt here and a nut on the back side. And then to put it in easier, we're actually going to take the axle nut off. Just take the axle out of the way so you don't have to step on it. You'll see that when we start putting it in, but for right now it's just strictly removing caliper, tie rod, sway bar, upper. Keep in mind these are probably, like you said, we've driven about 30,000 miles since we last did this. I bet you these things might be a little harder to get off, so we are going to soak them if need be. But for right now, let's just try without it. Here's the stock suspension, and with the Motofab leveling kit here, you can't really tell if it's beat up too much, but I'm sure it is on the inside. But now we're just going to pretty much take the leveling kit off to reuse, so we could reuse the nuts and hardware for that stuff there. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. We ended up taking the axle out here. It's a 26 millimeter. Got the upper out. That was a 21. This was a 16. The one that goes through the suspension is a 24 nut and then a 21 millimeter bolt. So it's pretty straightforward. We didn't have too much of rust. The only thing that was a little bit difficult was the axle nut, which we sprayed some WD-40 on, or PB Blaster, and that helped take it off. So let's get into it. As you can see, we had to put this in the vise. The hardest part was getting this like strut tower, like the mountain strut mount off. This nut, clearly when you twist it, this spins, the whole shaft will rotate. And if you don't have a strong enough air tool or, you know, impact gun, it's not going to be able to quickly jolt it. It's just going to spin the whole thing as one. So we actually had to put in the vise, use a pipe wrench. We had to put a socket in the inside. So this would go on the bolt. This would go on the tower right there. It's an 8 millimeter. We put it through there and we turned it through the 1/4 inch, and then we held this with the pipe. It was a nightmare, but we got it off thankfully. So we got to reuse this little bump stop and then this tower. I suggest getting new ones. Ours is still fairly low mileage, so we didn't. But if you have a higher mileage, these are probably like 50 bucks a pop. Definitely help. You know, it'll definitely help with the squeaking and noises and just the comfortability. I'm exhausted, as you can tell. That was rough, but now we got this set off. We're gonna put it all back together, and then we'll do the same procedure on the other side. So with this Eibach kit, we're gonna have to reuse the stock little. I'd say it's almost like a sleeve. And it's pretty easy to get off. You just kind of have to whack it a couple times on each side, and it will slide down. There it is. And then there's just one more collar. You're not going to reuse this, but you do have to get out of the way in order to slide that over. So we'll just kind of hit that as well. Bam. Clean it up a little bit in there. This one came with it. We'll just put that over, and then this will sit on top of it like that. And then your spring will just go, oh gosh, this thing is heavy, it's beefy. You're pretty much just gonna spin until it sits properly. Awesome, right there. So that's how it's gonna sit. And then we gotta use all this stuff. We're gonna have to compress this big time to really get access to it, because we gotta get it pretty much down to the stud is right there, so we gotta compress this big time. Wow. If you have, you know, AutoZone or Advanced Auto, you could rent these there. Kind of just equally apply the force. You don't want it to be, you know, bent or anything like that. We were having a lot of difficulty tightening down this strut compressor. This spring is just so big that it was very tough. So we had to actually borrow one of our friends, Milwaukee M18. This did the work, man. It tightened down this big time and really compressed it, enabled us to get that nut on, and pretty much this is all done, ready to go. Now it's just a matter of getting it back in. We might have to compress it a little bit, I don't know. You can see we got the strut with the spring all in. We found it easier to just put the 3 up top first. We slid it in and then point it down, and we had to step on this to get that bottom of the strut to get over that little hump of the lower control arm. We put the bolt through. Now we're going to put the nut on. We'll tighten that down, and then it's just the reverse procedure. So we'll probably end up doing the axle, and we'll do this. We didn't even end up taking off the sway bar, so I'm just going to put that on. It's under tension. So, yeah. And then it's just a matter of, we're probably going to have to use a floor jack to get this up now that you have so much more tension, and just get it on and then gun it home. But let's finish tightening this up right here. Is not going anywhere. Next step is, let's get this guy in. This sometimes is a little difficult, but we'll make it work. It's through. That is the 26. Now we're cooking. I might be able to get that in without the floor jack. This guy in, tie rod, nut. We just put the Motofab wheel and tire back on. This side's done. We're not going to film the other side because it's the same procedure, just opposite. We will film the rear, but first we're going to finish the front and then we'll go to the rear. So, see you in a sec.
Alright guys, we're getting pretty spent, but we're just keep on rolling through this project. It's getting pretty dark, so we're hurrying it up for you guys, but here's the product right here. Again, this is the 2.75 inch in the front, and we're going to do the 1 inch rear in the back, but man, until this settles, this looks much bigger than the last time. I'm definitely going to have to get some new upper control arms. They're more flexed down, the geometry's messed up, but we're on a slight incline as well. Once we get the back leveled out, I think that's going to look awesome, and definitely going to ride a lot smoother. So without further ado, before it gets dark, let's jack the back up and get the new Eibach on there.
So we made our way to the rear. Unfortunately, we're running out of daylight, so we're going to try and expedite this process. This is so much more simple compared to the front. As you see, it's not a coilover design. The coil spring is separate compared to the strut, so it's going to make life easier. What we're going to do is put the compressor on these just to have it there, so when we take off this strut, this spring doesn't go springing around. To hold this strut in, there's just one bolt on the bottom and then one nut on the other side, and then the top should be right up here, so we might have to take out a couple screws in the inner fender lining just to get access and visibility to that one up there. So let's just jump right into it. First things first, we got our strut compressor on here just to keep it in place, because once we take this off, it's going to kind of relieve that tension, and so this just prevent that from happening so it doesn't spring over. Now what we got to do down here is a 21 millimeter on both sides, so we're going to take the gun on the back side. Got that off. So we ended up taking a bunch of screws out on the side, which just hold the like this, like that. They just hold the fender liner into the body. So we'll access that now. That bolt right there. So we got the old one out. As you can see, the new one, it does look a little bit thicker, so it's definitely beefier. Almost the same height. We're not really raising up the rear. What's the specs on it again?
It's an inch raise.
An inch. So yeah, because this is going to be tough. I'm not going to lie. This is going to be a tough part. So we're going to end up getting this side in, and we're going to get the other side. We're going to do that all off camera because we're going to run out of daylight here. There is no daylight left. So Wes in the morning or afternoon tomorrow is actually going to do like overviews, like review of it, because this is really what that video is, because we had some noises. The ride quality was poor, as he said, so it's going to be more of a review kind of with these Eibach springs and struts. So we'll see you in a second, and it'll be another day.
Alright guys, it is actually the next weekend, and I'm just going to do a quick overview of the Eibach Prolift Kit we put on the Ram 1500 here. So I've been driving it for about a week or so, and I'm just going to give my opinions and kind of how it rides and things like that. So without further ado, I will show you the truck. Alright, so here's the Ram with that Eibach Prolift Kit on it, and it looks pretty damn good, I must say. So actually the front, we put the ring on the highest point, and that's the 2.75 inch lift or level in the front, like we mentioned before, but it's kind of hard to tell if you can get like a level view of it here. It actually sits a little higher in the front, which doesn't look too bad, but if you go in here, the upper control arm actually has a little more slant downwards, the geometry change, since it is a little higher. So I actually did end up just ordering a pair of Zone Off-Road upper control arms, so they're coming in this week. I'm just gonna install them. I really didn't want to do it, but after you know, riding with the truck for a few days and seeing the ride quality and the geometry change, I just figured, you know, it really can't hurt. And you can see the gap is decently large in the front. I'll try and find, you know, some specs and pictures from before, but yeah, the front definitely lifted quite a bit, and then the rear, we put that inch spring lift in the back, and it definitely raised it up. I'd say a noticeable amount. It might be hard to see on camera, but overall I think it, you know, changed the truck appearance a little bit, and it still looks good. Now for the ride quality, so before with those Motofab spacers, I actually did have a really bad high-pitched squeak. I put it in the beginning of this video. Now that sound completely went away, which is awesome, because that drove me freaking nuts. So that sound is completely gone, but there is still a slight squeak on the front driver's side from what I can hear. It's in that general vicinity. I think it might be the bushings of the upper control arms. I'm not 100% sure, but looking at the geometry and everything else with the suspension, it might be, you know, we mentioned this truck has 75,000 miles or so. So it was definitely good to upgrade all the shocks, struts, and springs, and then going to upgrade those upper control arms, so it's going to get a nice refresh. The overall ride quality with the Eibach is pretty good. It's not anything to, like, you know, go crazy about, because it was only I think $700 or $800 or something like that. This was definitely an improvement from the stock ride quality, I must say that. And from the stock ride quality with the spacers to this was pretty noticeable. If you hit a pothole or a bump, it takes it a lot better. The old setup, you would really feel the truck just shake in not a good way at all. So I'm definitely pleased with the results of this kit. And so we're gonna install the upper control arms this week, and I'm gonna get an alignment this coming Friday. So the truck's been riding fine. It's not towing left or right or anything like that. Yeah, I think once we've put those new beefier upper control arms on, the metal is just so much stronger and thicker than the stock here. So it's really gonna make a difference, I believe. And I probably should have done that from the beginning, but you know, everyone's got a certain budget for whatever they're working on for a vehicle. So this look is good for me and for my purposes of the truck being mostly a daily driver and then some off-roading here and there. Don't want to go anything too high as of now. So now I'm going to do some driving around a little bit to show you guys, see if you can hear that one squeak I'm talking about on the passenger side, but overall I'll try and hit a couple potholes and bumps and see how it handles, and let's do that now. So this is actually the perfect road to kind of illustrate and show you guys how the truck handles. There's a good amount of bumps and potholes on the road. So it definitely rides stiff compared to obviously a stock suspension truck, but that's what you get when you level or lift trucks, unless you really spend thousands of dollars to accommodate those big bumps. But the springs are under probably the most tension on this 2.75 inch lift in the front. And we'll do some of this stuff here. So overall, it's stiff, but it's not too bad actually. I like how it rides. Let's hit this here. Yeah, so you're gonna feel most of the road, plus with the bigger tires I have on this setup, the 33s, you definitely feel a lot of the road versus those really nice stock suspensions that comes with all the newer trucks nowadays. It rides good on the smooth parts of the road, which is good, it should. Another thing I want to mention, let's take this turn here. Go like 20 miles an hour. So you definitely feel a little more body roll in the whole truck itself, which is normal because you're lifting the truck, so the center of gravity is changing and it's not as good as if the truck was lower to the ground. So you do feel a little roll, nothing too intense. This is not like a 4-inch or 6-inch lift or anything like that. Let's hit this here. I can barely hear the squeak that I was referencing earlier. It's there, it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. And another thing I'll demonstrate right here, probably won't be able to tell too much. So when you come to a complete stop, you actually feel the truck kind of sway back and forth like a delayed reaction a little bit. And obviously, again, that's because you're lifting it high enough to the point where the center of gravity is changed and it's not going to be a smooth and equal ride as if it was a stock, which is fine. It's to be expected for leveled or lifted trucks, but overall it rides good, and I definitely need to take it off-roading soon, especially when I get the upper control arms and really test the durability of the suspension, because I think off-road will perform pretty well. So yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap up this video of the Prolift Kit, the Eibach suspension kit for the Ram 1500 here. Overall, pretty pleased. The price point was about what I thought it should be, and the quality of the materials was definitely there. You can tell they know what they're doing for suspension. They're one of the best name brands out there for suspension parts, so I'm glad I went with this kit. And I'm just going to show some more close-up angles and pictures for you guys so you can really see how the truck transformed. But until next time, peace.